Welcome to the Agility in Real Life podcast, Take 5 in Real Life. Now your hosts, Mike Studeman, Jeff Lee, and Pat Campbell.
But a lot to kind of call out. I mean, one, you have a compelling business case, which we've already talked about. Two, you had leadership, and I think maybe in a future episode we'll dive into, how do you get those senior leaders to really drive that organizational change. But you had senior leaders that were willing to support working in a different way. I like that idea of radiating the excitement across
Mhm.
the organization and not pushing people to work in a different way. And also, I think you mentioned how connecting with the customers, getting their feedback, showing them something builds that excitement. I think as product development professionals, we sometimes forget that the reason we're building product is to solve a problem for a customer or solve a problem for a user, and actually being able to connect with those people, that drives huge excitement, even if they're not always happy with what you build.
Yeah, correct. And as to your point on was everybody on board in doing this? Well, I would say certainly not. And we probably also get to talk about what kind of environment are we building for people in our organization. But they ran into very practical barriers when they were trying to develop this app. I can give you two examples.
That'd be great.
That they were building a mobile app, which wasn't just on like Android devices. We also had to build that for the Apple devices,
Right, right.
which meant they also needed Apple computers to to develop those apps. Where IT said, "Well, no, we only use Dell computers or whatever it was at the time. You can't have those." To which the senior leader said, "Well, you know what? I'm gonna solve that for you." So he went to like the Dutch Best Buy,
Hmm,
a
hmm.
bunch of those computers, installed them on the desk, and that was it. Problem solved. So there was a bit of going against the grain of what the organization wants you to do, and it challenged those barriers. When another example, and these are all the war stories, right?
Right, right. No, I think this is what our viewers and listeners love hearing.
Yeah, and it just shows like it's not just saying to people, "We want you to do something different," but then like it's in the actions that you take also as senior leaders to say, "Yes, and I'm going to fully support you in doing it." And the other one was that at the time the offices would be like small offices where just
Mhm.
two or three people could fit in a room. But this
Right.
was a team that actually wanted to work together. And there was just no space where they could properly do that. And they would go to facilities and say, "Hey, can we have this bigger room?" And facilities would say, "Well, no, because the rule is you can have only three people in an office."
Right.
Yeah.
This is how we've always done it.
Yeah. To which again the senior leader said, "You know what? If we all stay here until after 5, we're going to take out those walls and we're going to create a big space." And that's what they did.
Wow.
Big fuss, of course, but to me that shows like we're really gonna do something different here, and we're gonna make sure that you get the things that you need to be successful.
Well, and the awesome parts of those examples are I love the fact that the leader is the one that went to the Dutch Best Buy and got the computers. I love the fact that the leader was the one that helped break down the walls.
Yeah,
It wasn't the
literally.
leader saying, "Well, I'll get someone to do that for you, or I'll look into that, or I'll
Mhm.
get a committee to look at it." They just went out and did it, which I think
Yep.
is people talk about putting your money where your mouth is, or having skin in the game. They were actually doing both of those.
Yep.
I don't know if that translates at all to Dutch, but those sayings, anyways. But
No, I
I
yeah.
love the fact that the leaders did that. Um,
Yeah.
so what about did moving to a more iterative way of working, did that address in any way the traditional chasm that exists kind of between IT and the business in a lot of organizations? I know our clients run into that quite a bit where, Scrum is an IT thing and the business is kind of, well, what's this Scrum piece? Did Scrum help at all with that?
Well, I think we did that in a couple of steps. where even within IT, if you talk about iterative delivery or getting early feedback from your customers, this idea of having development teams and operations teams like completely separated already starts making not a lot of sense. Where if
Mhm.
you really want to know whether your product is doing what it should be doing, you want those operations people to be like really close and not create this us against them, but sort of create an environment where it makes total sense that we're in this together.
Right.
So the big change we did first was that we created these DevOps teams, right,
Okay.
to work in this Scrum setup. And because of the ask of the rest of the organization, we were able to um, have the entire IT organization in the Netherlands work in that way. So DevOps was
Wow.
really big at the time,
Wow.
um, where we had no longer separate dev teams and separate operation teams, but have that fully integrated and have all those teams work in a Scrum way. And only once we broke down that silo, that wall that we had between development and IT operations, um, we were sort of ready for the next step. We said, like, why is it that it's still us against them when it's business versus IT?
Right. All right.
We were successful in breaking down that wall within IT. Why couldn't we do that between IT and the business?
Business. Right. Right.
Right? Because you could argue exactly the same things. We're in this together. We're all working for the same customer. Um, and this is where we started looking into creating teams that would have IT operations, IT development, and business people sitting
Wow.
together. But again, you would want to show that we're solving a problem here, right?
Right.
And that
Right. Right.
it's something that actually works, just not for the sake of the change itself. I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Right.
And this is where, and I mean, we had the entire Dutch IT organization working in an agile way, right? In the business, I would say not at all. Um, so we said, let's do a pilot. So we took one floor in one of the buildings we had, and we made it look really nice. And it would have all the Google stuff, right? It would have the foosball tables
All
and
right.
the bags to sit in and the
Yep.
ping pong
Yep.
tables and everything would be there. And nice areas for teams to sit and work together, very much an open space. People say, that looks great. I'd love to work in a place like that.
So
No,
get them coming in, looking
we
at.
get the best people together.
Yep.
We give them a great problem to work on. And say, well, go for it and tell us when you need anything. And we had them go at it for a couple of months. And then, of course, there was a time when we had to evaluate the pilot and decide what to do next. And um, when we asked them, so tell us what great thing did you do, and what did you actually deliver? And the answer was, well, not too much, not
Mm.
close to nothing.
Mm.
Now, this is where we could have concluded that this thing apparently didn't work.
That doesn't sound optimistic at this point for sure.
I would argue so, yeah. Uh, the data is showing this was not successful. Until we started asking them, why weren't you able to deliver anything? What's the root cause behind you not being able to do it? And their answer across the board was, we spend our time fighting the rest of the organization to try and do things in a different way.
That's very interesting. So the pilot team actually identified that the number one barrier to delivering a value was the rest of the organization that hadn't transformed.
Correct. Yeah.
I think that's going to just a comment. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people that watch this episode because they're Obviously, if they're interested in an Agility IRL podcast, they're probably a change maker of some sort, a change agent of some sort, and candidly are probably frustrated themselves with the parts of their organizations that haven't changed. So
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's really quite fascinating. So what did leadership do there? I mean, that this has to be kind of a key moment in the journey because leadership could have said, well, pilot team, you just didn't get it. We're going to unravel that, or we're going to have to move forward. So I'm curious, what did leadership do?
Right.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Take 5 IRL podcast. If you like it, please go ahead and share it with someone, as well as like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Also, leave us a comment or a suggestion for a future episode. Again, thanks for listening, and we look forward to you joining us next time on the Take 5 IRL podcast.